The server room's silence. Arjun Rao thrived on routine. As a Level 2 IT support engineer for Digital Nexus Solutions, his nights were a symphony of blinking server lights, the low thrum of cooling fans, and the rhythmic tap of his keyboard. Sometimes, instead of stopping at 7, it would continue its slow ascent, often pausing briefly, almost imperceptibly, on an unlit floor above. No ding, no movement of the doors, just a soft whirring, a brief tremor, and then it would continue its upward journey before finally opening on 7. He'd find himself alone in the empty lobby, wondering if he'd imagined it. He blamed faulty sensors, an old lift with worn mechanics. He logged a maintenance request, but the building manager, a perpetually harried man named Mr. Sharma, just shrugged. "Old building, Mr. Rao, she has her quirks." Then came the cold spots. Patches of air in the 7th floor office, particularly around the server room and the long, unused corridor leading to the fire escape that would suddenly drop several degrees, chilling him to the bone, even with the office's efficient AC system. The hairs on his arms would prickle, a sensation that made him glance around nervously. He'd check the vents, the windows, all sealed. He blamed localized drafts, a quirk of the building's ventilation, but an unsettling sense of an unseen presence began to take root, a feeling of being watched. A pervasive, cold gaze emanating from the darkened, abandoned floors above and below. The first truly unsettling incident involved his lunch. He always brought a packed dinner, leaving it in the small kitchen fridge on the 7th floor. One Tuesday, he opened the fridge to find his neatly packed container of aloo gobi subtly rearranged, not eaten, not even disturbed, just shifted. The lid was slightly ajar, and the contents within looked as though they'd been carefully, delicately poked, leaving faint indentations. He swore he'd sealed it tightly. He dismissed it as a cleaning crew's oversight, perhaps an early morning delivery messing with the fridge, but a small seed of unease was planted. He tried to rationalize it. An old building settling, drafts playing tricks with the air, perhaps even the security guard making an unauthorized round. But the feeling of being watched, the persistent chill emanating from the unlit floors, was harder to dismiss. He found himself unconsciously averting his gaze from the elevator when it paused on a ghost floor, as if avoiding an unblinking eye. He started keeping a small tactical flashlight on his desk, not for power outages, but for moments when the shadows seemed too deep, too alive. One night, around 3 a.m., as he was troubleshooting a network issue, he heard it. A faint, almost subliminal whisper. From 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., Monday to Friday, the 7th floor of the old Shivneri Towers in Chikamagaluru was his domain. He was a creature of the night, a silent guardian of data packets and network stability. It was too soft to discern words, but it seemed to emanate from the ceiling directly above him, from the 8th floor, a sighing, mournful sound, like wind through dry leaves, but with an underlying cadence that felt strangely human. He froze, listening intently. Nothing. Just the oppressive hum of the servers and the rhythmic tap of his own fingers. He dismissed it as the building settling or the wind playing tricks on the old structure. But his sleep grew restless. The anomalies escalated, subtle yet persistent, gnawing at Arjun's rigid, logical framework. The elevator's errant descents became more frequent, and now it would occasionally descend too, pausing on an unlit floor below, sometimes the 4th, sometimes the 2nd, and the duration of the stops lengthened as if someone, or something, was waiting. The cold spots intensified, now accompanied by a faint, cloying sweetness, like lilies left too long in stagnant water, a scent that would suddenly fill the air before dissipating. It was a smell that spoke of decay and something ancient, out of place in a modern office. The whispers grew louder, clearer. They were no longer indistinct murmurs. They were voices. direct, personal, calling out fragmented phrases in what sounded like old Hindi, sometimes even Marathi, but the tone was clear, pleading, despairing, sometimes angry. And occasionally, a word or two in perfect accented English. Cold, below, lost, find us, sleep with us, sleep with us. He heard a child's soft sob, a woman's desperate plea, a man's guttural gasp, always seeming to emanate from the empty floors, echoing through the ventilation shafts, seeping through the concrete. He paused his work, straining his ears, but they would always fade, replaced by the oppressive hum of the servers. He started seeing fleeting shadow figures in the corners of his vision, coalescing for a split second into familiar forms. A small child, a grieving woman, an old man, before dissolving back into the darkness. His own reflection in the polished surface of his monitor screen seemed to distort, his features twisting into a fleeting grimace, a look of utter despair, before normalizing. It was preying on his mind, twisting his thoughts, trying to isolate him further. He preferred the quiet solitude of these hours, the absence of chattering colleagues and demanding bosses. It allowed him to focus, to lose himself in the complex logic of code and connections. He developed a slight tremor in his hands, barely noticeable but present. He stopped eating properly, stopped sleeping soundly. His logical mind, his anchor, was slipping. He found himself muttering arguments against an unseen presence, then immediately regretting it, retreating further into himself. His colleagues, the few he interacted with during the brief overlap of shifts, noticed his gauntness, the dark circles under his eyes. They attributed it to the night shift grind, offered sympathetic nods. No one would believe him. He was truly alone. The entity, whatever it was, knew. It was nurturing his despair, cultivating his isolation. Arjan began to research Shivneri Towers. He dug through dusty newspaper archives, old municipal records. The building had a dark past, a history of tragedy that had been quietly suppressed. In the 1940s, it had been a bustling textile factory. A devastating fire, supposedly caused by faulty wiring, had swept through the upper floors, claiming the lives of dozens of workers, mostly women and children who worked in the cramped, unsafe conditions. The bodies, many of them charred beyond recognition, were eventually moved to a mass grave on the city outskirts, but local legends persisted. Whispers of lost souls trapped between floors, their cries echoing in the silence. The building stood empty for decades, earning the local moniker Bhoot Mahal, the Ghost Palace, before being partially renovated and leased out as office space. A chill ran down Arjan's spine. The children's sobs, the women's pleas, the cold spots, the scent of lilies and decay. It was all converging. He looked at the unlit, silent elevator, knowing that behind its closed doors, something was waiting. He felt a sudden, overwhelming urge to take the elevator, to explore the abandoned floors, to confront whatever lay beneath, to force it to reveal itself. He felt a desperate need to understand. One particularly oppressive night, the building's main power grid suffered a complete failure. The hum of the servers died. The air conditioning whirred to a halt. The entire 7th floor was plunged into absolute darkness, broken only by the dim glow of Arjan's tactical flashlight. The sudden silence was deafening, heavy, filled with a tangible presence. Arjan, a man who believed only in what could be measured, what could be debugged, scoffed at superstitions. Ghosts were for Bollywood movies, not for modern, air-conditioned office spaces. He was wrong. Shivneri Towers itself was a relic. The air grew thick with the cloying sweetness. The scent of lilies and damp earth intensified, almost suffocating. The whispers in the office became a cacophony, a swirling vortex of voices, all of them his, all his anxieties, all his doubts, all the faces he'd lost. And then, from the depths of the hum, a clear, distinct sound, a child's laugh. playful, innocent, yet utterly chilling, followed by that guttural chuckle, now louder, more confident. He stood frozen, his heart hammering against his ribs. He felt the cold spots swirling around him, coalescing, forming indistinct shapes that pressed in on him from every side. And then, slowly, deliberately, he heard the faint creak of the elevator doors opening on the 7th floor. A faint, unearthly blue light began to emanate from the open elevator shaft, illuminating the lobby in an ethereal glow. Arjun stumbled backward, gasping, but his eyes were drawn, transfixed, to the opening. The elevator car was not there. Instead, there was an empty shaft, seemingly stretching down into infinite darkness. But within its depths, a scene was unfolding, not a reflection, but a window into something else. He saw a crumbling, smoke-filled interior, the distorted forms of dozens of figures, some small, some large, moving in slow motion, their faces contorted in silent screams. It was the fire. And then, in the very center of the shaft, bathed in the unearthly blue light, a shimmering distortion like heat haze, forming a vague, bipedal figure, impossibly tall, impossibly thin, its limbs too long, its head too small. Its skin seemed to ripple like water under moonlight, and its face, it was a shifting mosaic of shadows and light, features coalescing and dissolving, but he saw the eyes, not eyes, but two swirling vortices of darkest black, reflecting the dim glow of the scene with an unnatural, hungry gleam. The creature reached out, its impossibly long, slender fingers hovering over one of the ethereal figures of a small child, frozen in mid-scream. It didn't touch, it merely beckoned. The voices in Arjun's mind coalesced, a chorus now, 1,000 alien thoughts, 1,000,000 human fears, all merging, all vying for dominance. They wanted to leave. We offered peace, understanding, freedom. He watched in horror as the creature in the shaft seemed to inhale, a subtle sucking motion. A grand, Gothic revival structure from the 1930s. It stood like a silent sentinel amidst the burgeoning modernity of Chikamagaluru. Digital Nexus Solutions, a burgeoning tech startup, had rented only the 7th floor, drawn by the ridiculously low rent. The ethereal figure of the child wavered, its outline shimmering, before it slowly, inexorably began to drift towards the creature, its form becoming translucent, merging with the swirling darkness of the void where its mouth should be. It didn't struggle. It simply dissolved, a look of placid resignation on its face. Then another figure, an old woman, then a man, all drawn into the shimmering void. The shaft was a silent maw consuming them. The blue light from the shaft pulsed, then intensified, becoming a blinding, invasive blue that seemed to burrow into Arjun's very being. He felt cold, so cold. He heard his own scream, distant, muffled, then fading into the terrifying alien hum. He woke up, slumped on the cold tile floor of the 7th floor lobby, the emergency lights casting a dim red glow. The hum of the servers was back. The AC whirred softly. The elevator doors were closed, silent. The air was frigid, too frigid. But the silence, it was deeper than before, more profound. He pushed himself up, his body aching, his mind a shattered mess. The office was normal, too normal. He checked his watch. 6:03 a.m. He scrambled to his feet, grabbing his bag, and practically ran to the elevator. He pressed the ground floor button. The doors closed, and the elevator began its descent. He closed his eyes, bracing himself. It stopped, not at the ground floor, but at the 4th floor. The doors opened to absolute darkness. No light, no sound, just a pervasive cold and that faint, sweet scent of lilies and damp earth. And then, from the depths of the blackness, a single clear whisper, "Welcome home, Arjun." He slammed his hand on the door-close button, his breath catching in his throat. The doors hissed shut. The elevator continued its descent, finally opening on the ground floor. He stumbled out past the now awake guard into the early morning light. He never went back to Shivneri Towers. He quit his job, leaving a bewildered HR department to wonder about his sudden disappearance. He moved to a different city, one where he knew no one, where every building was new, made of glass and chrome, sterile and devoid of history. He avoids old buildings, particularly those with too many unlit floors. He avoids silence. He leaves the television on always, a low hum of white noise to drown out the others. He checks his reflection endlessly, scrutinizing his own face, half expecting it to distort, to show the void. The other floors, from the ground up to the 6th, and the 8th to the 12th, were dark, empty, and largely abandoned. The building security, a rotating cast of somnolent guards, mainly confined themselves to the ground floor lobby. He refuses to take elevators if stairs are an option. He tells himself it was a breakdown, hallucinations, the exhaustion of the night shift, the stress of modern life finally catching up to him. He repeats it like a mantra, a fragile shield against the terrifying truth. He clings to logic, to reason, but the shield is riddled with holes. From that day, he still remains thinking about it. He feels the faint, inexplicable cold spots, even in the warmth of summer. He sometimes catches the cloying, sweet scent of lilies and damp earth on a breeze or in the stillness of the night. He hears faint whispers, just on the edge of hearing, calling his name, promising him oblivion, echoing the cries of the lost. He scrutinizes the faces of strangers, the expressions of friends, looking for that subtle distortion, that unnatural stillness in their eyes, that hint of ancient knowledge. He knows it's still there. In Shivneri Towers. And he knows, with a horrifying certainty, that it carried a piece of him with it, a resonance that was forever altered, forever open to its cold, unblinking gaze. He escaped the building, but he did not escape the entity. He is safe, for now, but he is not whole. He is forever haunted by the chilling knowledge that beneath the familiar veneer of our world, ancient, hungry things lie dormant, or perhaps actively pursue, waiting for the curious, waiting for the isolated, waiting for the fear, forever ensuring that some absences, once experienced, can never truly be filled. And he will always wonder what stories it now whispers from the silent floors, what souls it now assimilates, and if, one day, the elevator will stop on his floor, its doors opening to absolute darkness, inviting him to join the forgotten. Whispers circulated among the daytime employees about the haunted floors, about strange sounds and unsettling cold spots. Arjun, always pragmatic, attributed them to drafts, settling foundations, and an overactive imagination fueled by too many late-night coffee runs. The first hint of something amiss wasn't a grand, terrifying spectacle, but a subtle shift in the everyday. It began with the elevator. It started subtly, as these things always do, like a barely perceptible tremor in the familiar melody of his night. Arjun would arrive promptly at 9:55 p.m., walk into the hushed lobby, nod to the dozing guard, and take the main elevator directly to the 7th floor. It was a well-worn path, but a few weeks into his new routine, the elevator began to develop a peculiar habit. Thanks for watching. The veil between our world and theirs is thinner than you think. Each like, each share, each subscription strengthens the connection. Feed the channel before it feeds on you.